This is PIX on Politics Daily with Dan Mannarino.
Hey everybody, welcome to PIX on Politics Daily. I'm Dan Mannarino, and don't forget, I am sitting down with Zoran Mamdani, the Democratic frontrunner in the race for New York City mayor. Full PIX on Politics episode that is airing Friday night, 6:30 p.m., asking him the questions that you want answered most. So a lot of you have sent in questions. I took all of them, taking them directly to the candidate himself. Of course, our interview is happening just mere hours after the second and final debate took place. But let me talk about what else is happening in real time, okay? A lot of you have been talking about this. We've been covering it, about the Trump administration and the looming cuts to SNAP benefits. Now, I know it affects a lot of folks at home, and the administration's decision to stop releasing what is known as the Household Food Security Report as well. And Councilman Lincoln Restler is joining me now to talk more about this. So, Councilman, good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
So, Councilman, kind of fill us in here on what exactly you are doing to fight this, right? Because a lot of folks have been talking to us, emailing us. We're talking to people on the street saying, well, what exactly does this mean? Are my SNAP benefits being completely cut? Am I going to buy food? How am I going to support my family?
These are truly scary times. You know, the Trump administration and the Republican Congress passed a bill earlier this year that's already going to cut food stamps and SNAP for over 200,000 New Yorkers. And now the Trump administration is threatening to cut food stamps for 40 million Americans, including 1.8 million New Yorkers. That's over 20% of the people in New York City. This is 500,000 kids, 500,000 seniors, working people who depend on food stamps to put food on the table every single day. And if these 1.8 million New Yorkers lose their food stamps in November, as the Trump administration is threatening, people will be starving in the streets. It will be catastrophic, devastating for the most vulnerable among us. So we need our leadership in Washington, Senator Schumer, Leader Jeffries, to do everything in their power to push the Trump administration to not use vulnerable New Yorkers and vulnerable Americans as a negotiating chip in this government shutdown. We need to protect the food stamps of all New Yorkers.
So I'm sorry, just to not to conflate the two. Is this because of the shutdown, or after the shutdown ends, it's still going to be going on?
This relates to the shutdown. So the Trump Department of Agriculture has threatened to discontinue food stamps benefits for 1.8 million New Yorkers as a result of the government shutdown.
Right. Now, so after the shutdown ends, meaning it doesn't get restored.
No, after the shutdown ends, it would be restored. This is a temporary potential threat. That being said, in previous shutdowns, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has always funded food stamps for all Americans. They have the resources to do this. This is purely political, and the Trump administration is trying to impose pain on the most vulnerable New Yorkers, the most vulnerable Americans, to try to force the Democrats to fold on the shutdown.
Yeah, I know. And the Democrats had requested a meeting, and the Republicans are trying to stop that meeting from happening, right? The Democrats wanted to meet with the president before his trip to Asia. But is there anything in the meantime, council member, that the city can do to keep the funding up and running? Is there money in an emergency reserve somewhere? I mean, I don't know if it's ever been done before to help these folks pay for food.
It would be unprecedented. We'll have to do anything and everything we can to try to fill this gap on a temporary basis. And I know that the team at the Department of Social Services, led by Commissioner Park, is looking at every potential scenario right now. I would certainly be supportive of a short-term funding infusion from city tax levy dollars that we could get reimbursed on once the shutdown is lifted. But look, at the end of the day, Donald Trump has refused to engage on this shutdown. He's refused to negotiate with Democratic leaders in the House and Senate to chart a path forward, get the government reopened, protect the health care of Americans. And these are really awful, terrible, disastrous threats that he and his team are putting forward right now, and we have to stop them from happening.
And there was the Household Food Security Report. Can you talk about that and what it means?
Yeah, there's a recent the Household Food Insecurity Report is a federal report, and the Trump administration has failed to release it and to show just how bad it is across New York City, across the state, across the nation for food insecurity. But we have data here in New York, and I can tell you in New York, there are 1.2 million New Yorkers who are food insecure. That's 1 in 5 children in New York City who are food insecure. So people are struggling already. If we take food stamps away from those people who are already food insecure and who are already struggling to get by, then they will literally starve, right? Food stamps does not provide enough to cover every meal of the month. It just provides some basic supplement. It's some modest supplementation to help you get by. People will truly starve. We will have to do everything we can as a city to support our food banks and our food pantries to try to get more resources out to vulnerable New Yorkers in need. It will be an all hands on deck effort to prevent starvation.
So you'd mentioned Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer. Have you had any conversations with these leaders and where they stand on the issue? Are they going to take action?
I can't speak for our leaders in Washington. They've got their hands more than full right now. I know that they're doing everything they can to protect vulnerable Americans, our healthcare, our food insecurity, and more. But I've been in touch with my local members of Congress who represent my council district, and I know that they are very concerned about this potential reality and trying to do everything they can to avoid a catastrophe. Okay. Look, there are not too many Republicans here in New York, but across the nation, people who are food insecure are both Democratic and Republican, right? There are poor Republicans in rural areas. There are people in Staten Island. There are people in upstate New York who depend on food stamps just as much as the folks in Brooklyn and the Bronx. Mm-hmm. So if they were to cut off food stamps for all Americans, this is not a red or blue issue. This is about hurting vulnerable Americans and vulnerable in truly disastrous ways. And so I hope that there will be a bipartisan backlash against this just harsh and unnecessary attempt to extract pain from vulnerable Americans.
While I have you, I want to talk about what played out yesterday, if you don't mind. Can we talk about the raids in Lower Manhattan going after the illegal street vending? So there's a multi-pronged approach to this, right? First, looking at the illegal street vending, should that have been tackled more locally before, not federally?
What the Trump administration and ICE did yesterday on Canal Street in Lower Manhattan was an attempt to strike fear in the hearts of immigrant New Yorkers, all New Yorkers. The aggressive show of force, an attempt to sweep up street vendors, primarily West African street vendors, and was very aggressive and dangerous. I was really inspired by the organic response from New Yorkers on the street in Chinatown that stood up and tried to intervene with ICE, tried to protect our immigrant brothers and sisters to keep us all safe. Of course, street vending is a local quality of life issue. We need to do a better job of regulating street vending. It's one of the thorniest issues in local politics.
Why is it such a thorny issue?
Well, street vendors are, the most are entrepreneurs that are trying to make their way. My great-grandfather, when he came to the Lower East Side 100 odd years ago, sold metal, out of a push cart. It's a tough gig. There are often quality of life issues that come about from the selling of goods on the street. There are not enough licenses for street vendors, so many of the vendors who are out there are unlicensed and unregulated. And there are always tensions between the street vendors on the block and the storefront businesses that pay rent and taxes. So there's a variety of different challenges. As colleagues in the city council, we talk about street vending a lot. We're thinking about different strategies for how we can better regulate the industry. Just recently, we passed a law to decriminalize enforcement of street vending so that if the NYPD is enforcing against the street vending issue or the Department of Sanitation, then we are not going to have, that person is not going to end up in a potential deportation situation over not following the rules on vending. I'm proud that we passed that bill. We overrode a veto from Eric Adams to ensure that becomes law. But but ICE is, doing whatever the heck it wants, and they're showing up on our streets and looking to sweep up vendors, and we're going to have to fight back and organize in every way we can to protect New Yorkers.
Yeah, I spoke to Jumaane Williams this morning, and he was talking about how he hopes that the next mayor, in conjunction with the city council, will really take a look at the street vending issue and come up with a better solution for it. I think he has a point there. I think you're saying the same thing, that there needs to be a solution to the issue, not just decriminalizing it, but figuring out how to make it safe. The ICE issue was something totally different that played out yesterday. So my question for you is, what can government do locally? Can the next mayor, can the city council do anything
Absolutely.
to stop the ICE agents or federal agents from coming to the streets and doing what they did yesterday? Or does the president have that authority?
Well, my office and other council offices around the city have been going door to door with small businesses to educate employers about how to protect their immigrant workforce and to ensure that they know their rights if and when ICE raids occur. And I think that these outreach efforts have been really helpful and effective. Furthermore, Congressmember Goldman just earlier this week is pushing the NYPD to prevent ICE from acting in ways that are inconsistent or in conflict with New York City's local laws, and to hold ICE officials accountable. ICE just ran wild on the streets of Canal Street and I don't think it was consistent with New York City laws, and we do want to see effective accountability and enforcement. But look, these are, we're in touch with colleagues and counterparts in Chicago, Los Angeles, other cities where ICE has been far more aggressive than they have been in New York. What we saw yesterday on Canal Street has been happening in other cities around the country. It has not, and I'm, I think very concerned that we're going to see ICE's presence and aggressive tactics increase around the city in the weeks and months to come. And we're going to have to be organized and as New Yorkers to fight back and try to protect neighbors from getting swept up by their raids.
Yeah, I'm up against the clock here, but are you saying that because of who the potential next mayor could be?
Trump has been clear that, Eric Adams is a buddy, and that they've looked out for one another in highly unethical and inappropriate ways. But that whoever the next mayor is, I don't think will have that same sort of close affinity that Eric Adams and Donald Trump have.
Got it. Councilman Lincoln Restler, I always appreciate you coming on. Good to talk to you.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
Okay. And don't forget, everybody, Zoran Mamdani, Picks on Politics, big interview, full episode to complete our Race for New York City Mayor series, Friday night, 6:30 p.m. And we'll keep you posted on all the things we just talked about with Lincoln Restler. We're going to follow those very closely as well. In the meantime, we'll see you next time.